If 2011 first overall pick Kyrie Irving can't reach an agreement to stay with Brooklyn, he has a list of teams he'd like them to consider for sign-in trades, including the Lakers, Clippers, Knicks, Heat, Mavericks, and 76ers, none of which have cap space to sign him without Brooklyn's help. Those are the teams Irving has interest in, but he isn't necessarily a priority for all of them, sources say. My, how the turntables. Woj with SVP last night.
If he was to leave and look for a team with salary cap space, I'm told that it would be the Lakers, but they've got a $6 million exception for him to sign. That's all he could do. He would need the Nets' help to do a sign-in trade to a team. The Nets would take back salary. He could get a big contract. That might be an unlikely scenario. I think this is a negotiation. This is a conversation still that's been going on between the Nets and Kyrie Irving. He wants a long-term, big contract from them. They want to do a shorter deal that gives them some protections in language and the contract, because simply Kyrie Irving hasn't been available enough to the Nets, especially over the last couple of years. And so there's a middle ground potentially that they'll be able to reach. But listen, what looms over all of this is Kevin Durant and how he feels about Kyrie Irving potentially leaving, and then what this team would look like without Kyrie Irving.
You know what you're going to get with Swerving. Points and a lot of DNPs. His time in Brooklyn has made him the only player in NBA history to average 25 points per game while playing 55 or fewer games in 3 straight seasons.
All right, follow me here with what the Knicks did on draft night. They traded the rights to their number 11 selection to OKC. They got 3 future conditional first-round picks in that deal. Then they traded one of those picks to Charlotte for the rights to Jalen Duren, the Memphis Tigers center. Then they traded Duren and Kemba Walker to Detroit for another conditional 2025 first-round pick. Got it? Got it. Bobby Marks translated.
You traded the 11th pick, and now you get 3 future protected ones. I think 2 of them probably never come to fruition. They turn into seconds, and the Milwaukee picks in 2025. And it feels like when you're moving Kemba Walker's salary, and there's probably another move there, that you're banking on free agency, which is hard to do if you think it's going to be a player like maybe Jalen Brunson that you're going to pay $20 to $22 million in salary. So I just thought there was an opportunity for New York at pick 11 to go out and maybe get a building block here to add to R.J. Barrett and just build this roster organically.
If you're still confused, you're not alone. Here's a visual summary of the Knicks' moves in that first round. In short, they trade the 11 pick, Kemba Walker, and 4 second-round picks. They got back 3 future first-rounders in return. And yes, pencils down, this will be on the final.
I am going to fail. Tomorrow we'll have an MLS doubleheader for you. The Sounders hosting Sporting KC at 3 Eastern. Noon Pacific on ABC, then DC United taking on Cashville on ESPN Deportes. And as always, the ESPN app so you can watch anywhere.
Sounds good to me. Are you wheels up for Denver to go see that cup?
Right? Yeah, rub it in, man. We got Sports Center to do tomorrow.
I will do it solo.
We're gonna be
if
talking
the
about
Avs win the cup and you are just too happy to get up. We're on E2 now.
Good morning. It's time to get up with number 1. Can the draft's top pick, Paolo Banchero, turn Orlando into a magic kingdom of the NBA? And Kyrie concern as the superstar angles for a new deal in Brooklyn. He's now got a list of trade destinations. What does it mean for him and Kevin Durant? And Arch goes to Austin, how the Texas Longhorns hooked the latest star from football's first family right under Nick Saban's nose. We got that and a lot more as we say welcome to you on Get Up. I'm Ryan Smith in for Greeny. Got a great show for you here today. And look who's here. Adrian Wojnarowski, just fresh off the draft, slept like 2 hours, came right here to talk draft and Kyrie drama. And also, look who else is here. Rob Ninkovich, Jeremy Fowler, here to talk football. Buster Olney talking Yankees. But first, we start with that new generation of NBA stars. The draft last night. An exciting night, by the way, at the draft, because it was a surprise right at the top. The Magic took Paolo Banchero, number 1, joining Zion, Kyrie, and Elton Brand. He's now the 4th Duke player to go first overall in the modern draft era, breaking a tie with Kentucky for the most over that span. Then Chet Holmgren, who was the number 1 overall recruit in 2021, went to the Thunder, 2nd overall, now the highest drafted player to come from Gonzaga in the modern draft era. And then Jabari Smith Jr., number 3 to Houston, Hadn't drafted an eventual All-Star since Yao Ming in 2002, longest active drought for any franchise. So an interesting night from the draft as Woj comes back with us. And Woj, I have to ask, what has been the reaction from around the league of Paolo Banchero going #1 to the Magic?
Ryan, it was a lot of surprise. It was about 7:30, 7:25 when we started to get a sense that indeed the pick was going to be Banchero. And this was one of the great stealth pre-draft operations run by Jeff Weltman, John Hammond in Orlando. They had everybody convinced that Jabari Smith Jr. was going to be their pick at #1. Jabari Smith Jr.'s camp believed they were going #1. Chet Holmgren and his camp, they believed they were at #2 to Oklahoma City, which is how that stood up. And, of course, the Rockets went from believing they were going to take Banchero to, in that time frame, realizing that there was a really good chance that Jabari Smith Jr., the player that many thought was going to be #1 overall, would make it to them at #3.
You think about that list of players in Orlando that have gone #1, Shaq, Dwight Howard, Chris Webber, then traded for Penny Hardaway, and now Banchero. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, the other big story that you were all over yesterday, you had the big story of the day, essentially. Kyrie Irving, what's the latest on his decision and what's going on with him and the Nets?
This is a really murky scenario right now between Kyrie Irving, the Nets, and Kevin Durant. He has a $36 million player option he can opt into midweek next week, or he could opt out, become a free agent. And right now it's a situation in the marketplace where there's no cap space out there for Kyrie Irving to leverage the Nets that he can go into. Essentially what his leverage is the Lakers' taxpayer mid-level exception, which is about $6 million. So you're looking at taking a $30 million hit to do that. And of course, they could create space, and next year he could re-sign there on a longer deal. But he's wanted a long-term deal in Brooklyn. They've not been willing to do it. And now Kevin Durant, who is on a long-term deal, how does that impact how he looks at moving forward in Brooklyn? Now, sometimes this is simply a negotiation dance, and the only thing they can legally negotiate right now is an extension off of that $36 million number. And so there's going to have to be communication between the Nets and Kyrie Irving here in the coming days if there's a way for them to land on a way to move forward together. But it's looking less likely as this thing plays out that at the very least you're going to see Kyrie Irving on any kind of long-term deal. And if he opts into the deal, then he's under contract for this year at $36 million. I think for him, his willingness to take significantly less money, which he did do last year by not getting vaccinated, it cost him about $17 million in lost salary, essentially lost a shoe deal over his the fact that he's been so unavailable the last couple years. This is a drama that, again, it's not just Kyrie Irving, but is how does it impact Kevin Durant, how he feels about moving forward in Brooklyn, and whether they can hold together, this pair that they brought with such great hope expectations together a few years ago. Are they going to be able to move forward with them?
It's amazing. It's such a fascinating story. Just a month or so ago, he was talking about how KD and I are working it out and trying to make this team work together in the way we want. And now he is in this situation. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, this news you broke yesterday was just incredible. The list that he's mentioned of Kyrie Irving's proposed trade list. We're talking both LA teams, the Lakers, the Clippers, as well as the crosstown Knicks, the Heat, the Mavericks, and the 76ers, but none of those teams have cap space to sign him without Brooklyn's help, and sources said some aren't interested in acquiring him.
Some, if not many, of that group are not necessarily interested. The Lakers are really the one team on that list that has great interest in Kyrie Irving. This is his list. It is not necessarily the wish list of those teams.
Let's welcome in Seth Greenberg to talk more about Kyrie Irving. Seth, had to get you on because I had to get your reaction to Kyrie releasing this trade list. What do you think?
Well, it's typical Kyrie. There is always drama. There's always something. As talented as he is, draft night, the biggest night for those young people that are trying to get to where he was and where he is. But there's always something. Like, the dude was going to be a Celtic for life. He wanted his own team. He wanted to be the focal point. Then he wanted to team up with KD. All right, he gets KD to join along with him. Then, all of a sudden, at the end of the season, he's going to get with Sean Marks. If Sean Marks and KD and Kyrie are going to, all of a sudden, they're going to create this new image of the Nets. Oh, and now on a draft night, all of a sudden now he's going to give you a list. Come on, man. It's always about him. Great talent, undeniable. But when you talk about Kyrie Irving, can you count on him? And the answer is no. It's flat and simple. The answer is no. All right. And if you can't count on him, how valuable is he? Is his talent better than the issues that come along with it? In a lot of ways, would you want to coach him? Because if you want to coach him as a coach, you want to know what you have. All right. You want to know what you have. You want someone that you can count on. If you have no idea, and it has nothing to do with, the vaccine and everything else, because there's a history prior to that, except in the time in Cleveland when he had someone that basically, whether you like it or not, was the focal point of everything they did.
Yeah, and look at what we have on the bottom of the screen here. He's missed more games than he played since joining the Nets in 2019-2020. So you mentioned he's always drama, but we talk about the incredible talent. So do the cost-benefit analysis for us. Is he worth it?